this is where all of my money goes. I am terrified and I am so nervous and I want to back out, but it is literally way too late.
People are buying homes in 2025 thinking it's the safest thing to do, but for a lot of them, and in my own opinion as well, it might just be the biggest financial trap of their life. Now, I know it may be sounding dramatic, but I genuinely believe it's the truth. And today I have a lot of good clips to show you and to react to so that you can form your own opinions whether buying a home in 2025 is actually a good idea or not. If you're new here, hello, my name is Vic. I'm a registered nurse and certified life coach turned personal finance strategist. And on this channel, I help ambitious men get smarter with their money and educate them the same way I did myself about getting smarter with money and building real long-term wealth over time. I do make these videos for ambitious men only, specifically because that is just in general what my channel is about, but feel free to watch the video as well. Of course, nothing in this video, my friends, is financial investment advice. This is just pure educational purposes only, and I practice everything I preach, so this is all completely from my own practices and things I do day in and day out. I'm not going to waffle on, so let's just get straight into the video. Please subscribe and share.
I'm in the process of buying my very first house as a 28-year-old with no kids. I'm not married. I am in a relationship. I close in 7 days and I feel like I should be super excited right now and happy, but in reality I am terrified and I am so nervous and I want to back out, but it is literally way too late in the process for me to back out, and I've missed my last chance to do that. And so now I am just like sitting here and regretting my decision, but we're just gonna have to make it work. We're gonna have to figure it out. And yeah, I'm gonna be house poor. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna afford food. I don't know how I'm gonna afford gas. I don't know what I'm doing. Who let me do this? Who let me do this?
You did, darling. Nah, I'm kidding. Having actually experienced this from someone that's been close to me, it's actually been very weird because this is so true. People actually go in just because of, like, from my own opinion anyway, like social pressures and just like the hype of actually getting on the property market. Yeah, it's so good. The thing is, my friends, you have to look at the maths. The annual growth rate of houses is around about 3%. I'll show you, you know what, I'm just going to show you right now. Just look at the screen right now. Let me just show you two different stats that are super important and you will see yourself the opportunity cost. Let me just show you right now. So as you can see, the investment type, first we have the house, right? Let's say you paid a down payment of £90,000. That's your investment towards this property, right? And let's say you kept it for 30 years and you kept repaying the mortgage payments, etc. And the house went up in value. Great. The final value would approximately, with a 3% capital appreciation annual growth rate, be around about £250,000 after 30 years. So you have essentially almost 4x your investment, which is almost a 400% increase. That's great. However, if you put that same amount of money into the stock market, which generates an annual nominal rate of return of around about 10% per year, as you can see, my friends, the same 90,000 actually with a 10% nominal rate of return, meaning adjusted before inflation, for 30 years, the same period, nothing's different. As you can see, the final value is significantly different at just over £1.74 million. Obviously, this is based on speculation, both perspectives, but the whole point is that the difference between the two is over an 8x difference between the two investments, not even between the original capital amount that you've actually invested. And the opportunity cost of this is massive, my friends, because for me personally, yes, 100% you need to be able to afford to buy a house. However, it's also crucial that you're able to put aside money into your investments, whether that's it for your retirement savings or whether that's for something else just in general. For me personally, investments they're essentially your retirement. So you need to start as soon as possible, in my own opinion, just because of the fact, just to allow compound interest to work for you instead of against you, because the later you start, the less growth you'll see. And probably the more debt you will be put in if you don't manage your money well. And remember, compound interest works equally as well against you if you go into debt, because the APRs of the debts are significantly higher than the compound interest rates we see from the stock market, right? It's honestly very easy maths, but when you look at it like this, you can see the opportunity cost is massive. Obviously, with a house, you can convert it, you can flip it, and you can keep on doing that, etc., etc. But it's also a lot of work. Whereas the stock market truly is the only way, in my opinion, that you can genuinely receive passive income. And it's not exactly income because you're not receiving it as income now, but in the future for your retirement, you will receive it as income. But again, this is my own opinion.
This is where all of my money goes. Every time a bill comes, I just hate owning a home because who needs to pay $250 for fucking electric?
This is in no way, shape or form funny, my friends. If you look at the average monthly mortgage repayments, as you can see in America, it's round about $2,261 a month. And for the UK monthly mortgage payments, it's around about £1,253. Remember, this is the mortgage repayment. This is excluding any bills, utilities, anything else. Because having seen it from a close friend of mine, that can easily add up to £500 on top of the mortgage payments. And as we know, the average UK income currently is round about £2,200, £2,300. Well, that's over 50% you are paying for your house. And that, my friends, for me at least personally, is not at all within budget, and you will become house poor. Let's have a look at some of the comments. Birdie says, biggest scam there is, home ownership. You got played. Now the banks and government owns you even more. Obviously, it's not a scam, my friends. It's very good to be a homeowner. Everyone should aspire to be a homeowner, or even just having their place renting. It depends, because and you want geographical freedom from being able to live wherever you want, then renting actually makes more sense. Plus, if anything happens within the flat, you don't actually, unless it was your fault, you don't actually have to pay for any of it. And in most cases, even if something does break, the tenant living there does not need to pay for anything. It will be the homeowner because it's their property. There have been a lot of problems with that. And remember this, my friends, the government knows that people are not earning that much. Obviously, inflation keeps on rising, cost of living is increasing. And remember, the banks know that this loan is massive because mortgage is a loan, right? So you need the loan to be able to buy the property of the house. But because that loan is so big, the mortgage, the government knows it will take you such a long time to pay it off. Plus there's going to be vast interest on it, which is how the banks make their even more money from us, by the way. This is why you really need to calculate and do the maths behind it, because equally you need it, but you don't want to do it where it's mathematically against you. You really want to be within budget, and you need to make sure that for you, you can afford it very reasonably and comfortably whilst not sacrificing, especially whilst not sacrificing the investment costs that you have and other future investments, and being able to go out and being able to save money as well as being able to pay for other essential fixed costs that you have just to be able to live your day-to-day life. So it's not complex, but you need to make sure that you plan and budget well. Alex says, it's an investment. You have something many have been praying for. Yeah, a house is an investment, but it can also be a very big liability, because if something happens with the roof or something happens with the walls, your washing machine gets broken, just whatever it is, your boiler needs changing, this is all a lot of money on top of the payments you're doing automatically right now. And remember, if it's costing you so much, you'll barely be able to save any more money. And then when, let's say you need a boiler replacement, which we just recently changed ours, it was around between £2,000 to £3,000. It's crazy, right? Well, my friends, because you're not able to save much money, you need to take out credit card loans. And then because of that, the APR on it's so high, and then you could see how you slowly fall behind because of this. Whereas if you budgeted beforehand, and I'll say this because it's very important, if you budget beforehand and make sure you're planning for all of this and go in with a nice emergency fund and are able to do the monthly payments, then you'd be a lot better off. And yes, I know it's difficult, and yes, you'll probably require sacrifices. You do what you can do now to do the best you can in this situation.
Many millennials regret buying homes. This is why it's important for you to run your numbers so that you don't end up house poor. Let me show you what I mean. What you can qualify for and what you can comfortably afford is sometimes two different things. So if you make $100,000, the typical debt to income ratio a lender is going to use when qualifying you is about 40%. That gives you $40,000 divided by 12 months, gives you a monthly allowance of $3,333 if you have no debt. So you could buy probably around a $400,000 house. Your payment would be around $3,300, and you would just qualify and you'd be celebrating. But the next step you must take with your family is, what is your take-home pay? If you make $100,000, your take-home pay is around what? $6,200? If your house payment without utilities or anything is $3,300, that is 53% of your net pay. This is where you're creeping into the house poor area, and you don't want to be there. But I understand your frustration, because you're like, hey, I make $100,000. How can I find anything for under $400,000? Because back in the day, the financially responsible thing to do was to have your house payment be about 30% of your net. But if that were true for someone making $100K today, they would have to buy a $240,000 home which doesn't really exist in most places. So I understand your frustration. But when you sit down with your lender, also sit down with your family, talk with your lender, and look at your net pay so that you don't end up house poor and you can actually enjoy the home you're purchasing.
Listen up, my friends. This part is crucial. Do not skip. This is the issue that I feel a lot of people don't actually think about. They focus so much on getting onto the property ladder that then they actually forget to do the numbers behind it. And I'll show you what I mean. Let's say you're in around about £3,000 of UK disposable income, right? So this is your net monthly pay. If we follow this rule, 30% of that is £900. Yeah, £900. But the problem lies, my friends, that your bills and the utilities as well, they're gonna factor into this cost as well. We assume with the gas and electric and council tax, those main things that on top of the mortgage payments, that is probably, you're looking more at an amount that's around about £1,300 to £400. And I would say that's me being quite harsh. It's better to be harsher and be prepared for the harsh situation rather than be generous and then not prepared. At least that's how I see it. So that means that that's going to be round about £1,400 of your disposable income, meaning that that is 47% of your disposable monthly income. But this is where the problem lies, my friends, and this is where you need to be careful with the numbers. And make sure you listen, because honestly, this is very important. Just give me a sec. 47%, that is just the monthly payments plus the utilities. That's basically all of the housing costs that you have per month, right? But that's 47%. That's just the housing costs though. You then have your own direct debits, right? So let's say you have direct debits of an additional £1,000, right? That's going to be £2,400 every single month, which is approximately 80% of your disposable income. And then if you factor in 20% of investing costs, which I would say is a good number, that's personally one that I use, and I really do not want to compromise this at all. And it could be all right, but then you don't really have any fun money left over. And you have to wonder, is that a way you want to live your life? This is the thing, because technically it's possible, but you have to wonder, is that a way you want to live your life? Instead of renting, go to live with your parents, or if you don't want to live with your parents, or you don't have that option, because I understand not everyone's privileged enough to have that option, then you can go to rent with 3 or 4 people or another person to make your rent payments smaller, right? And the whole point of that is so that you can build up your deposit for the house significantly more, because the more you increase that deposit, the more your mortgage payments will drop. And then when you add the bills on top of that, if you can hit a figure of round about £1,000 to £1,100, etc., if you earn around about £3,000 disposable income every month after tax, then it could make sense for you to buy the house, because you could probably squeeze in those numbers quite tightly, but it would be decent enough. You'd still be able to have a quality of life, keep having your retirement savings and building up your retirement portfolio, because that's the whole point of investing in general, is to grow your wealth and be able to have an awesome house that you actually like, that you know you can afford. Because if that wasn't the case, my friends, then what would happen is a vicious cycle. Because if you're not able to do that, my friends, and then you go and you pay like 50, 60, 70% just for the house, which honestly is quite realistic for a lot of people, because they really try to get on the property ladder as quickly as possible, but then they don't do the numbers. The problem with that is that then you'll find that you're so tight every single month and you're not able to have a quality of life anymore. You're not able to invest. So the opportunity cost goes out the window there, and you're not actually able to grow your retirement portfolio, because now is genuinely the best time, because you've got a significant amount of years to compound for you. And not to mention, even worse, if you don't have an emergency fund, you're screwed, because if something happens, you won't be able to pay and you will have to go into debt. And let's say even if you did have an emergency fund and you did this and you're on your numbers of 6 months, your fixed cost expenses, including your housing costs, right? So let's say, for example, £10,000. Problem is that if your overall payments are so small, you'll not be able to save much money, meaning that when you need to save much money, you need to cut back on your investing costs or back from your fund money costs. And obviously the fund money situation is fine. Like sometimes you can just not do it and then you can save, that's fine. But think about, let's say you need to replace your boiler, or let's say something happens with the structure of the house. You as the homeowner will need to pay for that. That money will be coming out of your pocket, and it's very expensive. And even though your emergency fund could probably cover that, it will take you so long to rebuild it, literally years to rebuild it, because you're only able to save a couple £100 a month, which means that then you will be forced into getting debt. If you can't get help from someone else, like your relatives or loved ones, you'll be forced into getting debt at a higher APR, meaning that you'll be struggling to pay off that debt, which will hinder your investing costs even more. And then you can see, my friends, now all of a sudden you have a bad quality of life because you can't go out. You're struggling to live it in your own house. And worst of all, this is genuinely the worst thing of all, in my opinion, is your retirement portfolio and your investing costs, your overall general investing is significantly hindered and damaged. If you take anything from this video, my friends, make sure it's this what I just said. If you want to talk more about this, my friends, and have access to me, where we talk all about investing, wealth building, and just getting smarter with money in general, and you can join me here in my online community, the Ambitious Breakthrough Club, my friends. There's a 7-day free trial, so you've really got nothing to lose. And even after that, it's $1 a month. But I am looking for the first 100 members to join it, just to help me to shape it up, see what you guys like, what you don't like, so I can make the community as best as possible for you. Plus, there's many other benefits as well. Check it out. I think you'll really like it. The link's down below in the description or in my YouTube bio. YouTube recommends and thinks you'll like one of these two videos over here. Click one, and I'll see you over there, my friends.